I thought my camera was glitching, until the man in the background started appearing closer in every new picture, even when I wasn't taking them. The first time I saw him, I didn't even register it as a person. It was just a smudge in the corner of a photo I'd taken at the coffee shop downtown. A dark blur, like someone had walked past while my shutter was still open, except I'd been using my phone camera in perfect lighting. I zoomed in, squinting at the shape, but it remained stubbornly undefined. A trick of shadow, maybe. A glitch in the lens. I deleted it and thought nothing more about it. 3 days later, he appeared again. This time in a selfie I had taken at my apartment. I'd been trying out a new lamp I bought, checking how the warm light looked against my living room wall, when I noticed it during my usual photo review before posting. There, in the background near my bookshelf, was that same dark shape. Taller than before, or maybe just more noticeable. It stood perfectly still while everything else in the frame was crisp and clear. My smile looked natural. The lamp glowed beautifully, and that thing lurked in the corner like a stain on reality. I convinced myself it was a problem with the phone. I'd bought it used 3 months earlier from a guy on Craigslist, and while it had seemed like a steal at the time, maybe there was a reason he'd sold it so cheap. Perhaps the previous owner's data hadn't been completely wiped. Maybe their photos were somehow bleeding through into mine, creating these strange artifacts. I'd heard of things like that happening. Technology does weird things when you don't do a proper factory reset. But that explanation felt thin even as I tried to believe it. The shape didn't look like a double exposure or corrupted data. It looked deliberate. Placed. The more I stared at it, the more it seemed to have a form. Shoulders, maybe. A head. The suggestion of a human figure rendered in shadow and absence rather than light and presence. I started checking my photos obsessively after that. Every picture I took, I examined immediately, zooming into the corners and background, looking for that dark visitor. For almost a week, nothing appeared. I began to relax, telling myself I'd been paranoid, that whatever glitch had caused those images had resolved itself. My phone was fine. Everything was fine. Then I opened my gallery to show my coworker a meme I'd saved, and I saw a photo I didn't remember taking. It was shot from inside my car, angled toward my apartment building. The timestamp said it had been captured at 2:30 in the morning. I'd been asleep at 2:30 in the morning. I'm certain of that because I'm a rigid sleeper, someone who goes to bed at 10:30 every night without fail and wakes at 6:15 to my alarm. My phone charges on my nightstand, face down, untouched until morning. But there was the photo time-stamped and saved in my gallery between a picture of my dinner and a screenshot of a news article. The image quality was poor, shot in darkness with only streetlights providing illumination, but I could make out my building clearly enough. And there, standing on the sidewalk in front of the entrance, was the figure. Closer now. Detailed enough that I could see it was definitely a man. Though his features remained obscured, his face a void where details should have been. My hand shook as I held the phone. Someone else had my phone at 2:30 in the morning. Someone had unlocked it, opened the camera, and taken this picture. But that was impossible. My phone required a fingerprint to unlock, and I lived alone in a third-floor apartment with deadbolts on the door. No one could have gotten in. No one could have taken my phone, used it, and returned it to my nightstand without waking me. Unless I'd taken the picture myself. Sleepwalking, maybe. I'd never done it before, but stress could cause that, couldn't it? I'd been working long hours lately. Maybe my subconscious had driven me to my window, made me photograph the street below for some reason I couldn't fathom. But I hadn't been near a window. The angle of the shot was wrong. It had been taken from inside a vehicle, I was sure of it. The slight reflection on the windshield gave it away. I went through my entire gallery that night, photo by photo, looking for anything else I didn't remember creating. I found 2 more. One showed the parking lot of my building from an elevated angle, as if someone had been standing on the hood of a car. The man was in that one too, closer to the camera, his form more solid. The second photo made my breath catch in my throat. It was my living room, shot from the doorway leading to the hall. The lights were off, but ambient glow from the street filtered through my curtains just enough to illuminate my couch, my coffee table, my television. And standing beside my couch, facing the camera, was the man. No longer a blur. No longer just a shape. He had a body now, a full human form, though his face remained that terrible absence of features. He wore dark clothes that seemed to blend with the shadows around him, and his hands hung at his sides, fingers slightly curled. He wasn't moving in the still image, but something about his posture suggested imminent motion, like a sprinter in the blocks waiting for the starting gun. The timestamp on that photo read 11:47 the previous night. I tried to remember what I'd been doing at 11:47. Watching television probably. I rarely went to bed before 10:30. I would have been awake, alert, sitting on that very couch he stood beside. If someone had been in my apartment at 11:47, I would have seen them. I would have heard them. I would have known. But I hadn't known. I hadn't seen or heard anything. And now I had proof that someone had been there, in my home, close enough to touch me with my phone in their hand. Taking pictures. Documenting their presence. Leaving evidence of an impossible intrusion. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch with every light blazing, my phone clutched in my hand, watching the shadows and waiting for something to move. Morning brought no comfort, only exhaustion and the harsh realization that I couldn't continue living in fear of my own phone. I decided to approach the situation logically. If someone was breaking into my apartment and taking photos, there would be evidence. Signs of entry. Physical proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I spent my lunch break installing a security camera in my living room, one of those cheap smart home devices that record it to the cloud and send motion alerts to your phone. I positioned it in the corner, angled to cover the entire room, including the doorway where that photo had been taken. If anyone entered my apartment, I'd have video evidence. The thought provided some measure of relief as I returned to work, though I couldn't quite shake the feeling that I was being watched. That night, I forced myself to maintain my normal routine. Dinner at 7. Television until 10. Bed by 10:30. I placed my phone on the opposite side of the room before sleeping, far from my bed, where I couldn't reach it without getting up. If I was somehow taking these photos while sleepwalking, the distance would wake me. If someone else was taking them, they'd have to cross the entire room in view of the security camera. I woke at 3:15 to the sound of my phone buzzing. Not my alarm. A notification. I lay in the darkness, heart hammering, listening to the soft vibration against my dresser. Once, twice, 3 times. Then silence. I didn't get up. I didn't want to see what had caused those notifications. I pulled my blanket tighter and stared at the ceiling until my alarm finally released me from the night. The security camera had recorded nothing. 8 hours of footage showing my empty living room, uninterrupted and undisturbed. No movement. No intruders. No explanation. But my phone gallery had grown by 4 photos during those 8 hours. 4 images I hadn't taken, documenting a progression that made my skin crawl. The first showed my bedroom door from the hallway. The second showed my bedroom from the doorway, the shape of my sleeping body visible beneath the covers. The third was closer, taken from the foot of my bed, close enough that I could see the pattern on my blanket. And the fourth was closest of all, shot from beside my bed, angled down at my face. My eyes were closed, my expression peaceful. And standing behind the phone's perspective, visible in the mirror on my dresser, was the man. He had a face now. Or rather, he had the suggestion of a face. Features that seemed to shift and blur whenever I tried to focus on them, like trying to remember a dream upon waking. But I could see enough to know he was looking at the camera when the photo was taken, looking at the phone in his hands, looking at me through the lens. I called in sick to work. I couldn't function, couldn't think about anything except those photos and what they meant. Someone had been in my bedroom at 3:15 in the morning. Someone had stood over me while I slept. Someone had used my own phone to document it, to prove they'd been there, to show me how vulnerable I was. But the security camera had seen nothing. No one had entered my living room. No one had walked down my hallway. The only way to reach my bedroom was through that living room, past that camera, and the footage was continuous and unbroken. No one had been in my apartment except me. I started to doubt my own sanity. Maybe I was creating these photos somehow. Maybe there was a malfunction in the phone, some strange glitch that generated images using AI or corrupted data. Maybe I was experiencing some kind of dissociative episode, doing things I couldn't remember, The alternatives were too terrible to consider. My friend Rachel came over that evening at my desperate request. I showed her the photos, watched her face change from curious to concerned to afraid. She scrolled through them slowly, zooming in on details, checking timestamps, and then she stopped on the image of my living room, the one taken from my hallway. "This is your apartment," she said quietly. There wasn't a question. "I know." "No, I recognize this. The couch. The painting on your wall. That lamp you just bought." She looked up at me and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Someone's been in here. Someone who knows where you live, who has access to your phone. The security camera didn't catch anything. Then there's a blind spot, where they knew about the camera and avoided it." She handed the phone back to me like it was contaminated. "You need to call the police. This is stalking. Breaking and entering. This is serious." What was it? What would I tell them? That my phone was taking pictures by itself? That an intruder was somehow entering my apartment without leaving any trace, bypassing my locks and security camera, just to photograph me sleeping? They'd think I was insane. They'd see a single woman living alone, stressed from work, suffering from paranoia and sleep deprivation. They'd recommend therapy and send me on my way. Rachel stayed with me that night. We took turns sleeping, one of us always awake and watching. At 4:30 in the morning, her phone chimed. She'd been dozing in my armchair, and the sound jolted her awake. She checked the notification, frowned, and then her face went pale. "What is it?" I asked from the couch. She turned her phone toward me. There was a photo from my phone airdropped to hers. The image showed both of us in my living room. Rachel in the chair, me on the couch, both of us asleep despite our agreement to stay vigilant. And standing between us, closer to the camera than ever before, was the man. He'd grown more solid with each appearance, more real. In this photo, I could almost see his features. A face twisted with something that might have been rage. Hands reaching toward the camera. Toward us. The photo had been taken 7 minutes ago, according to the timestamp. 7 minutes ago, when we'd both been awake and alert. When we'd been looking right at the spot where the man supposedly stood. We'd seen nothing, heard nothing, but the photo didn't lie. Rachel left before dawn, apologizing but unable to hide her terror. I didn't blame her. I wanted to leave too. But where would I go? If this thing, this presence, whatever it was, could invade my home and manipulate my phone, would distance matter? Would running help? I spent the day researching. Ghost photography. Haunted phones. Electronic voice phenomena. The internet offered 1,000 explanations, most of them ridiculous, some of them terrifying. I read about spirits that attached themselves to objects, about curses that traveled through technology, about the thin places where the dead could reach through and touch the living. And in my research, I found a subreddit. People sharing their own experiences with inexplicable photographs, with images that shouldn't exist. I created an account with shaking hands and uploaded the clearest photo of the man, the one where his face was almost visible. I titled the post, "Can anyone identify this person?" and hit submit before I could second guess myself. The responses came quickly. Sympathy. Suggestions to call the police or a priest. Theories about camera glitches and sleep paralysis. But then, buried in the comments, one message made my blood freeze. I recognize him. He looks like the man who died in a hit and run on Maple Street about 2 years ago. Never caught the driver. I used to live near there and saw his photo on the news. The case went cold. Why do you have his picture? Maple Street. I closed my eyes and felt the world tilt beneath me. I knew Maple Street. I'd lived on Maple Street 2 years ago in a different apartment before I'd moved across town to my current place. And I remembered the accident. I remembered the sickening thud, the dark shape rolling across my hood, the split-second decision to drive away before anyone saw. I remembered the news coverage the next day, the description of the victim, the plea for witnesses to come forward. I remembered every detail except the man's face. I'd never seen his face. He'd come out of nowhere, stepping into the road in dark clothes on a darker night, and I'd hit him before I could process what was happening. I told myself he'd survived. That the news said he was in critical condition, not dead. That driving away had been panic, not murder. But I'd been lying to myself for 2 years. The news had said critical condition because he hadn't died at the scene. He died 3 days later in the hospital, alone and unidentified until someone finally recognized him from a missing person report. And I'd convinced myself that not knowing his name meant I wasn't responsible. That not seeing his face meant it wasn't real. Now he had a face. Now he was showing it to me, closer with each photo, more detailed with every impossible intrusion. He was making sure I saw him. Making sure I understood. Making sure I knew exactly who was coming for me. I didn't sleep for 2 days after the Reddit comment. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that night on Maple Street. The rain-slicked road. The dark figure materializing from nowhere. The terrible sound of impact. My hands on the steering wheel, knuckles white as I made the decision to keep driving. To leave him there. To save myself. Guilt is a strange thing. You can bury it deep, convince yourself it's gone, and then something small will crack the surface and it all comes flooding back with twice the force. The photos weren't just evidence of an intrusion anymore. They were accusations. Evidence of my crime delivered through the one device I carried everywhere, looked at constantly, trusted implicitly. My phone had become both witness and prosecutor. I researched the victim obsessively. His name was Marcus Webb, 34 years old. He'd been walking home from his shift at a warehouse, cutting through the residential streets of Maple to avoid the longer route along the highway. He had a daughter, a sister. A life that ended because I was checking my phone while driving, because I didn't see him until it was too late, because I chose my freedom over his justice. The photos continued appearing. Sometimes 3 or 4 a day, always when I wasn't looking, always showing something that shouldn't be possible. Marcus standing in places I'd just left. Marcus in the background of the grocery store, watching me from an aisle I hadn't walked down. Marcus reflected in windows, captured in surfaces, present in every corner of my increasingly small world. I stopped going out except when absolutely necessary. I stopped seeing friends. I called in sick to work so often they stopped believing me. My apartment became a prison, but it was a prison that couldn't keep him out. The security cameras I'd installed throughout the space showed nothing unusual, yet the photos proved he was there. Watching. Waiting. Growing more defined with each appearance. The impossible photo appeared on the 3rd night. I'd finally collapsed from exhaustion around midnight, my body overriding my terror long enough to drag me into unconsciousness. I woke to sunlight streaming through my window and the sound of my phone buzzing. The notification was from my gallery app, cheerfully informing me that new photos were ready to review. My hand shook as I unlocked the screen. The gallery showed one new image, and the thumbnail alone made me want to throw the phone across the room. I opened it with dread coiling in my stomach. The photo showed me sleeping, but not from across the room or from the doorway. This was taken from inches away, close enough that the phone's flash had illuminated every detail of my face. My lips were slightly parted. My hair spread across the pillow. My expression vulnerable in a way that made me feel violated down to my bones. And standing directly behind where the camera had been, visible in the mirror again, was Marcus. He wasn't blurry anymore. Wasn't undefined. I could see his face clearly now, and I wished I couldn't. His features were distorted, stretched, as if he'd been frozen mid-scream. His eyes were wide and fixed on my sleeping form. His mouth hung open in an expression of rage and anguish that no living person should be able to make. He looked the way I imagined someone would look in their final moment of life, when they realized they were dying and no help was coming. The timestamp made my chest tighten. The photo had been taken at 6:48 in the morning, 7 minutes before my alarm went off at 6:55. 7 minutes before I'd woken up. Someone had been in my room, leaning over my bed with my phone, close enough that I should have felt their breath, that I should have sensed their presence even in sleep. But I'd felt nothing. Slept peacefully until the alarm released me. I examined every inch of the photo, looking for evidence that it was fake, manipulated, anything but real. But the image was genuine. The quality was consistent with my phone's camera. The metadata was intact. Every detail checked out. Someone had taken this photo from beside my bed 7 minutes before I woke, and I had no memory of it, no awareness that I'd been anything but alone. I called the police. It was something I should have done days ago, but shame and fear had kept me silent. Now I was too terrified to care about the consequences. Let them discover my connection to Marcus Webb. Let them investigate me for the hit and run. At least I'd be in custody, away from my apartment, away from whatever was happening here. The officers who responded were professional and thorough. I showed them the photos, explained about the security cameras capturing nothing, told them about waking up to find images I hadn't taken. They searched my apartment, checking locks and windows, looking for signs of forced entry. They found nothing. No scratches on the locks. No damaged windows. No evidence that anyone had been inside except me. They interviewed my neighbors, asking if anyone had seen suspicious activity around my unit. Nothing. They reviewed my security camera footage themselves, looking for what I'd missed. Nothing. They examined my phone, checking for malware or remote access software. Nothing. One of the officers, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, sat with me on my couch and spoke gently. Have you been under a lot of stress lately? Working long hours? Any major life changes or traumatic events? I wanted to laugh. Traumatic events. Yes, I killed a man and spent 2 years pretending it never happened. That qualified as traumatic, didn't it? I know what you're thinking, I said. That I'm doing this to myself somehow. That it's stress or a breakdown or whatever. But I didn't take these photos. I couldn't have. I was asleep. Sleepwalking is a real phenomenon. It's more common than people think, especially during periods of anxiety. She touched my arm with genuine sympathy. I'm not saying that's definitely what's happening, but without evidence of a break-in, without anything on your security cameras, we have to consider all possibilities. They left after advising me to change my locks, install additional security measures, and consider speaking with a therapist. They didn't arrest me, didn't accuse me of wasting police time, but I saw the doubt in their eyes. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was creating this elaborate story to get attention or because I couldn't cope with living alone. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe guilt and sleep deprivation had fractured something in my mind, and I was generating these images through some process I couldn't understand or remember. Maybe Marcus Webb wasn't haunting me through my phone. Maybe I was haunting myself. That night, I tried an experiment. I locked my phone in my car, parked in the building's garage. No one could access it without my keys, and I kept those on my nightstand. If new photos appeared, it would prove I was sleepwalking, retrieving the phone, and taking the pictures myself. And if no photos appeared, maybe whatever this was would be forced to stop. I slept fitfully, waking every hour to check that my keys were still on the nightstand, that I hadn't moved in my sleep. The night passed slowly, each hour a small victory. By morning, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I'd found a solution. Maybe depriving the phenomenon of access to the phone would end it. I went to my car at 7, keys in hand, ready to retrieve my phone and celebrate the first night without new photos. But when I opened the driver's side door, I found the phone sitting on the passenger seat, screen illuminated, gallery app open. I hadn't brought my keys with me during the night. They'd been on my nightstand all night. I checked. But somehow the phone had migrated from my locked vehicle back inside, carrying with it 3 new photos. The first showed my car from outside, the driver's side door closed, the interior dark. The second showed the interior of my car, the empty driver's seat, the phone sitting where I'd left it in the glove compartment. And the third showed me standing in my apartment, staring at my phone with an expression of mounting horror. That photo had a timestamp of 30 seconds ago. It had been taken after I'd retrieved the phone from my car, after I'd walked back inside, after I'd opened the gallery app to check. Someone had photographed me looking at their photograph, creating a loop of observation that made my reality feel impossibly fragile. I looked up from the screen, scanning my empty apartment, and wondered who was watching me now. Who was waiting for the next opportunity to prove that nowhere was safe, that no precaution would work, that I couldn't escape what was coming. The Reddit post had exploded overnight. My uploaded photo of Marcus had been shared, analyzed, enhanced, and discussed across multiple forums. People claimed to recognize him from local news coverage. Others insisted the image showed evidence of paranormal activity. A few suggested I was running an elaborate hoax for attention. But one comment, posted by a user named TruthSeeker2023, had been upvoted to the top of the thread. That's Marcus Webb. Died 2 years ago from injuries sustained in a hit and run on Maple Street. The driver was never caught. Opie, if you really have these photos, you need to explain how a dead man is appearing in your camera. And if you're the person responsible for his death, you need to confess. His family deserves closure. The comment had my hands trembling. Someone had connected the dots. Someone knew who Marcus was and had posted his full name, the circumstances of his death, even details about the investigation that had eventually gone cold. Other users had picked up the thread, posting links to news articles, photos of Marcus when he was alive, information about his daughter who'd been placed with relatives after his death. I stared at the photo of Marcus alive. He'd been handsome in an ordinary way, with an easy smile and kind eyes. The kind of person you'd pass on the street without a second thought, never imagining that one rainy night he'd step into traffic at exactly the wrong moment. Never imagining that the driver who hit him would be too cowardly to stop, to call for help, to do anything but flee and hope they'd never be caught. The guilt that I'd successfully buried for 2 years cracked open fully, flooding me with a nausea so intense I barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. I'd killed him. Not in anger or with intent, but through carelessness and cowardice. I'd taken his life and then taken his justice, and now he was taking everything from me in return. The photos became more frequent, hourly instead of daily. Marcus appeared in every image I looked at, even ones I knew for certain had been taken before the accident, before his death. I'd scroll through my gallery and find him lurking in the background of vacation photos from 3 years ago, standing in the corner of my college graduation pictures, present at family gatherings he couldn't possibly have attended. He was rewriting my history, inserting himself into every moment, claiming retroactive presence in my life. But it was the new photos that terrified me most. The ones that appeared without me touching my phone, showing perspectives that no human could achieve. Marcus standing on my ceiling looking down at me. Marcus phased halfway through my wall, his body bisected by solid matter that should have been impossible to penetrate. Marcus multiplied, 5 versions of him surrounding my bed while I slept, each one slightly more corrupted than the last. He looked almost human in most photos now, except his face was wrong. The proportions were slightly off, as if someone had described a human face but never actually seen one. His eyes were too far apart, his mouth too wide. His skin had a waxy quality that reminded me of funeral home cosmetics. He looked like what he was, a corpse animated by rage, given form through my phone's camera, sustained by guilt and fear. I tried destroying the phone. I smashed it with a hammer, watching the screen shatter into 1,000 pieces. But when I powered on my laptop to transfer important files, I found the photos had automatically backed up to the cloud. And new photos continued to appear, uploaded from a device that no longer existed. Marcus in my kitchen. Marcus in my bathroom. Marcus standing directly behind me while I stared at the laptop screen, his ruined face pressed close to my shoulder. I bought a new phone, convinced I needed to start fresh. The moment I logged into my account, 2 years worth of photos downloaded automatically, including every image of Marcus. And a new photo appeared immediately, showing me in the phone store, signing the paperwork for my purchase, while Marcus stood behind the sales clerk, watching me with that terrible stretched expression. He was in the phone. Not in the physical device, but in the account, the cloud storage, the digital infrastructure that connected every device I owned. He'd found a way to exist in the spaces between hardware and software, to manifest through cameras and screens and networks. He'd become digital, and I'd given him the tools by uploading that first photo to Reddit, by seeking help from strangers, by inviting the world to look at him. I stopped eating. Stopped sleeping except in brief collapse. I covered every camera in my apartment with tape, but photos still appeared, taken from impossible angles, showing things no camera could see. I disconnected from the internet, but the photos continued, stored locally, appearing in my gallery like dark flowers blooming in fast motion. The photo that broke me appeared on the 7th day of my isolation. I'd been sitting in my living room, staring at nothing, when my phone buzzed. The notification was from an app I'd never installed, with a name that was just symbols and corrupted text. I opened it to find a video file. The video showed my apartment from multiple angles simultaneously, an impossible split-screen perspective that shouldn't exist. Each quadrant displayed a different room, all filmed at the same timestamp, all showing Marcus in different positions. Marcus in my bedroom sitting on my bed. Marcus in my kitchen standing at my stove. Marcus in my bathroom staring at his reflection in my mirror. And Marcus in my living room standing directly in front of me, close enough that his ruined face filled the entire frame. I'd been alone in my living room when the video was recorded. I was certain of that. But the video showed Marcus there, real and solid, occupying space, casting shadows. And as the video played, he moved. His head tilted slowly, mechanically, until he was looking directly at the camera. At me. And his mouth opened, wider than should be possible, and he spoke. The sound quality was terrible, like audio recorded underwater or through layers of static. But I heard the words clearly enough. You left me. On the road. In the rain. You left me dying. And now I'm never leaving you. The video ended. The app disappeared from my phone as if it had never existed. But I sat there, frozen, finally understanding what was happening. This wasn't a haunting. It wasn't supernatural revenge or ghost photography. This was something worse. This was guilt made manifest. This was my subconscious punishing me for what I'd done, using the device I carried everywhere as a weapon against my own sanity. Or maybe it was Marcus, somehow trapped between death and digital existence, using my guilt as an anchor to pull himself into the world. Maybe my memory of him, my unacknowledged responsibility for his death, had given him the foothold he needed to exist again, partial and corrupted, in the photos and videos I couldn't stop creating. Either way, I understood the endgame now. He was getting closer with each photo, more defined, more real. Eventually, he'd break through completely. Eventually, the distance between his digital existence and physical reality would collapse. And when that happened, when he finally stepped out of the screen and into my world, what would be left of me? The message came at 3 a.m. Not a photo this time, but text. Words appearing in my notes app, typed by invisible hands while my phone sat locked on my nightstand. I watched the letters form in real time, glowing in the darkness, each word a nail in the coffin I had been building around myself for the past 2 weeks. You can't escape what you've done. You can't delete me. You can't destroy me. I exist in every moment you refuse to confess. I grow stronger with every silent day. Your guilt gives me form. Your fear gives me power. And soon I'll give you what you gave me. An ending. Unexpected. Permanent. Alone. I didn't try to fight anymore. Didn't delete the message or throw the phone across the room. I simply watched the words multiply, filling screen after screen of my notes app, repeating the same accusations in an endless loop until my phone's storage filled and the device crashed. When it restarted, the notes were gone, but I'd memorized every word. They were carved into my mind deeper than any digital storage. The photos had stopped appearing yesterday. For the first time in 2 weeks, my gallery remained static, unchanged, mercifully free of new images. I'd initially felt relief, a desperate hope that maybe it was over, that Marcus had exhausted whatever energy allowed him to manifest through my devices. But the relief curdled quickly into dread. He hadn't stopped. He'd simply moved beyond needing to document his presence. He was here now, fully realized, no longer constrained by cameras and screens. I could feel him in my apartment. Not see him, but feel him the way you feel someone standing behind you in an empty room, or sense movement in your peripheral vision that vanishes when you turn to look. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe, as if his presence displaced the oxygen. The temperature dropped at random intervals, cold spots appearing in corners and doorways, marking the places he occupied. My reflection began changing. I catch glimpses of it in mirrors and windows in the screen of my phone, and each time it looked slightly wrong. My face was too pale. My eyes too dark. My expression frozen in a rictus of fear that didn't match what I was actually feeling. And behind my reflection, sometimes I'd see another face. Marcus, clearer than ever, standing directly behind me, his ruined features pressed close to my shoulder, his mouth moving soundlessly, speaking words I couldn't hear but understood perfectly. Confess, confess, confess. I tried. I really did. I drafted a message to the police detailing my involvement in the hit and run. I wrote out everything, the exact date and time, the location on Maple Street, the rain and the dark clothes and the terrible sound of impact. I described how I'd driven home, parked in my garage, and sat in my car for 3 hours trying to convince myself to go back, to call for help, to do anything but what I actually did, which was shower away the evidence and pretend it never happened. But I couldn't send it. Every time my finger hovered over the submit button, I'd see another photo appear in my gallery. Marcus standing beside a small girl who had to be his daughter. Marcus standing beside a woman who looked like him, probably his sister. Marcus standing beside the makeshift memorial that had been erected at the accident site, flowers and photos and handwritten notes asking why, asking how could someone hit a person and just leave them there. If I confessed, these people would know, would see my face attached to headlines about justice finally served, would learn the name of the person who'd stolen their father, their brother, their friend. They'd hate me. The world would hate me. I'd go to prison. My own family would disown me. My life would end just as surely as Marcus's had. So I deleted the drafts, cleared my browser history, convinced myself that confession wouldn't bring Marcus back, wouldn't undo what I'd done. It would only destroy 2 lives instead of 1. And each time I made that choice, each time I decided that my freedom mattered more than his justice, the presence in my apartment grew stronger. Last night, my phone battery died even though I'd charged it to full capacity. When I plugged it in and powered it back on, the screen showed a single photo in my gallery. Everything else had been deleted. Every selfie, every screenshot, every saved meme and family picture. Gone. Only one image remained. It showed me standing at my front door, hand on the knob as if I was about to leave. But something was wrong with the image. Terribly wrong. My eyes were open but empty, pupils dilated and fixed, staring at nothing. My skin had a grayish pallor, waxy and lifeless. My jaw hung slack, mouth open in a silent scream, or perhaps just the relaxation of muscles that no longer responded to nerve signals. My body stood upright, but only because something was holding it there, supporting it from behind. Marcus's arms were wrapped around my torso, his hands clasped over my stomach, holding me like a puppet. His face was pressed against the side of my head, cheek to cheek, and for the first time since the photos began, he was smiling. Not the stretched, agonized expression he'd worn in every other image. This was genuine pleasure, satisfaction, the smile of someone who'd finally gotten what they deserved. The timestamp on the photo read 11:47 p.m., November 11th, 2025. Tomorrow's date, tomorrow's time. The photo was predicting my death with the same precision Marcus had used to document his intrusion into my life. He was showing me my ending, giving me the same courtesy I'd denied him. At least I'd know when it was coming. At least I wouldn't die confused and alone on a rain-soaked street, wondering if help was on its way. I've been sitting here for hours, watching the clock on my wall tick toward 11:47 p.m. It's 11:34 now. 13 minutes left. My phone sits on the coffee table, screen dark, waiting for the moment when reality catches up to the prediction. Waiting for Marcus to step fully out of the digital realm and into physical space. Waiting to make good on 2 years of silent promises. I thought about running. I could leave right now, drive somewhere far away, be nowhere near my front door when 11:47 arrives. But I know it wouldn't matter. The photos showed me Marcus could find me anywhere. In my car. In public spaces. In rooms I'd never been to and places I'd never visited. Geography was irrelevant to whatever he'd become. I thought about confession one more time. If I sent that message to the police right now, if I took responsibility for what I'd done, would it satisfy him? Would he release me from this torment and let justice take its natural course? But even as I picked up my phone to try, my hands wouldn't cooperate. The self-preservation instinct was too strong. Even facing certain death, I couldn't bring myself to choose the alternative. It's 11:41 now. 6 minutes. I can hear footsteps in my hallway even though I'm alone. Slow, measured steps getting closer to my door. The temperature has dropped so low I can see my breath misting in front of my face. The lights are flickering, casting shadows that move independently of any light source, gathering in the corners like dark water pooling before a flood. My phone screen illuminates without me touching it. A new photo appears in my gallery. This one shows my living room from the perspective of someone standing in my hallway. The angle is identical to that first photo that started all of this, the one that made me realize someone had been inside my apartment. But this time, I can see myself sitting on the couch, exactly where I am now, holding my phone and staring at its screen. And standing in the doorway, fully visible, solid and real, is Marcus. He looks almost human in this photo. Almost alive. The corruption has faded from his features, leaving behind an ordinary man with kind eyes and an easy smile. The man from the news photos. The man from before the accident. The man I killed. He looks peaceful, as if he's finally found what he was searching for. As if he's finally ready to rest. 11:44 p.m. 3 minutes. The footsteps have stopped. The hallway has gone silent. But I can feel him standing just outside my door, waiting for the appointed time. Waiting for the moment when the predicted photo becomes reality. Waiting to show me what it feels like to have your life stolen by someone who couldn't be bothered to stop, to help, to care. I'm writing this on my laptop because I want someone to understand what happened. I want there to be a record beyond the photos, beyond the digital breadcrumbs Marcus left. When they find me, and they will find me probably tomorrow when I don't show up for work, I want them to know that this wasn't random, that I wasn't an innocent victim, that every photo, every manifestation, every moment of terror was earned. I killed Marcus Webb on a rainy night 2 years ago. I hit him with my car and drove away, leaving him to die alone on Maple Street. I took his life and his justice and his daughter's father, and I lived free while he rotted in the ground. Whatever happens to me at 11:47 p.m. tonight is not supernatural revenge. It's not a ghost story or a haunting. It's simply consequences delivered through the only medium that could force me to look at what I'd done. My phone. My constant companion. The device I trusted more than my own conscience. 11:46 p.m. 1 minute. The doorknob is turning. I can see it from where I sit, slowly rotating, the deadbolt disengaging with a soft click even though I never heard anyone insert a key. The door is opening. The hallway beyond is completely dark, a void that seems to absorb light rather than simply lacking it. And stepping across the threshold, entering my apartment for the final time, is Marcus. He looks exactly like he did in that last photo. Human. Real. Solid enough to cast a shadow that stretches across my floor. He moves slowly, deliberately, crossing the distance between the door and my couch with measured steps. He doesn't speak. Doesn't need to. His presence says everything necessary. I can smell rain and asphalt and something else, something organic and rotten that makes my stomach heave. Death has a smell. I know that now. It's not like the movies suggest. It's worse. It's the smell of meat left too long in the sun, of flowers gone to rot, of life transforming into its chemical components. It's the smell that filled my car after the accident, faint but unmistakable, that I'd convinced myself was imaginary. He's standing in front of me now. 11:47 p.m. The appointed time. My phone is buzzing, vibrating against the coffee table with a new notification. I don't need to look to know what it is. Another photo. The final photo. The one that shows my body standing at the door with empty eyes and Marcus's arms wrapped around me, holding me upright, smiling at the camera because he's finally won. Marcus reaches out with one hand. His fingers are cold when they touch my shoulder. Not metaphorically cold. Physically, literally cold, like meat pulled from a freezer, like flesh that hasn't been warmed by circulating blood in years. I try to pull away, but my body won't respond. I'm frozen, paralyzed, forced to sit and wait as he leans closer, his breath reeking of standing water and decomposition. His mouth is next to my ear. His voice, when he finally speaks, sounds like audio played through broken speakers, distorted and fractured but intelligible. You left me in the street, alone, dying. So I'll leave you here, alone, dead. And they'll find you and wonder what happened. Just like my family wondered. Just like my daughter wondered. Fair trade. Justice balanced. I feel his other hand wrap around my throat. Not squeezing yet. just resting there, measuring. His grip is impossibly strong, fingers pressing into soft tissue, finding the points where pressure would collapse my windpipe, stop my blood flow, end my consciousness. This is how it happens. This is how I die. Not in a car accident or from natural causes, but strangled by a dead man in my living room at exactly 11:47 p.m., just like the photo predicted. I close my eyes, wait for the pressure to increase, wait for the world to narrow and fade, wait for the ending I've earned through 2 years of cowardice and silence. But the pressure doesn't come. Instead, I hear footsteps, multiple footsteps, coming from my hallway, from my bedroom, from every room in my apartment. I open my eyes and see them. Multiple versions of Marcus, each one slightly different, each one showing a different moment from the accident's aftermath. Marcus lying on Maple Street, body broken. Marcus in the ambulance, hooked to machines that couldn't save him. Marcus in the hospital bed, dying alone while I slept peacefully at home. Marcus in the morgue, tagged and cataloged and photographed for evidence files that led nowhere. They surround me, a chorus of the dead. All the versions of Marcus I'd created by refusing to acknowledge what I'd done. They speak in unison, their voices creating a terrible harmony that makes my ears ring and my head pound. Confess, or join us. Choose now. My phone is in my hand. I don't remember picking it up, but it's there, screen unlocked, emergency services already dialed, waiting for me to press call. One button, one choice. Confess to the police about the hit and run, face the consequences, let justice finally be served. Or refuse one last time and let Marcus take what I owe him. My finger hovers over the button. The Marcus versions are waiting. The clock has moved past 11:47. I'm living on borrowed seconds, time that should have already ended. Time Marcus is giving me to make the choice he never got to make. Live or die. Confess or hide. I press the button. The phone rings once. Twice. A dispatcher answers, professional and calm. 911, what's your emergency? The Marcus versions start to fade. Not disappearing completely, but becoming translucent, less solid. The one with his hand on my throat loosens his grip, steps back, watches me with those kind eyes from the news photos. Waiting to see if I'll actually do it. If I'll actually confess. I need to report a hit and run, I say, and my voice sounds strange to my own ears. Broken. Defeated. Relieved. 2 years ago. Maple Street. I was the driver. I killed Marcus Webb. I'm ready to confess. The police found my apartment empty at 2:34 a.m. on November 12th. They'd sent units to investigate my emergency call after I'd stopped responding to the dispatcher's questions mid-confession. The door was unlocked. The lights were on. My laptop sat on the coffee table, screen displaying a document titled Confession.docs. But I was gone. My phone was found on the couch, battery fully charged, gallery open. The last photo showed my living room from multiple angles simultaneously, that same impossible split-screen perspective that shouldn't exist. Each quadrant displayed the same timestamp, 11:47 p.m. And in each quadrant, standing at different positions around the empty apartment, was Marcus Webb. Smiling. Satisfied. Alone. The search for me lasted 3 weeks before being scaled back to a cold case. No body was ever found. No evidence of foul play was discovered. My car remained parked in its space. My bank accounts went untouched. My phone records showed no calls except to 911. I'd simply vanished mid-confession, as if I'd been deleted from reality like a photo removed from a gallery. The detective assigned to my missing person case, a methodical woman who specialized in cold cases, found my Reddit post while researching Marcus Webb's hit and run. She read through the comments, saw the escalating horror of my story, and made a connection that officially stayed off the books. Unofficially, she had a theory. She believed I'd been consumed by guilt, that the photos were manifestations of a mind breaking under the weight of unconfessed crime, that I'd staged my own disappearance to escape prosecution, fleeing in the minutes between the 911 call and the police arrival. She believed I was alive somewhere, living under an assumed name, still running from what I'd done. But sometimes, late at night when she reviewed the case files, She'd look at that final photo from my phone. She'd study the impossible angles, the multiple perspectives, the way Marcus appeared in all 4 quadrants simultaneously. And she'd remember something her grandmother used to say: the dead don't rest until the scales are balanced. Justice deferred is justice denied, and some debts can only be paid one way. She never told anyone that she'd started seeing a figure in the backgrounds of her own photos. A woman who looked like me, standing in corners and doorways, appearing closer with each new image. She never mentioned that her phone sometimes showed photos she didn't remember taking, images captured while she slept, showing her bedroom from perspectives no human could achieve. She never confessed that she'd been the responding officer to Marcus Webb's hit and run 2 years ago, that she'd been first on scene, that she'd had a clear view of the license plate as the car drove away but had been too shocked to write it down, too slow to radio it in, too consumed by the sight of Marcus's broken body to do her job properly, that she'd let the driver escape through her own incompetence, and that for 2 years she'd buried that failure under hard work and closed cases and the conviction that she was one of the good ones. The photos on her phone kept multiplying. Marcus and some, me and others. Sometimes both of us together, standing behind her, reaching toward her with cold hands and empty eyes and that terrible smile of satisfaction. She tried to delete them, destroy her phone, switch to a new device. But the images followed her, propagating through the cloud, existing in the digital spaces between hardware and guilt. Last week she called in sick to work. She hasn't been heard from since. Her apartment was found unlocked, lights on, laptop open to a document titled Confession.docs. Her phone sits on the coffee table, gallery open, showing one final photo. It displays her living room from multiple angles simultaneously. In each quadrant, standing at different positions around the empty apartment, are 3 figures: Marcus Webb, me, and the detective herself. All of us smiling. All of us satisfied. All of us together in whatever digital purgatory exists for people who refuse to balance the scales until it's too late. The photos keep appearing on phones throughout the city. People who witnessed accidents and didn't stop to help. People who saw crimes and stayed silent. People who hurt others and convinced themselves it wasn't their fault, wasn't their responsibility, wasn't their problem to solve. They all get the photos eventually. They all see the figures getting closer. They all have the same choice I had: confess now or join us later. The man who keeps changing in the photos isn't Marcus anymore. It's all of us, growing in number with each person who chooses silence over justice, creating a gallery of guilt that exists in every phone, every camera, every screen, waiting in the digital shadows for the next person who thinks they can escape what they've done. We're very patient. We have all the time in the world, and your phone is always watching.